All right. Good morning, senior home business family. We got Brittany, got Matt in the house talking about assisted living versus memory care today. It's so exciting to be involved in this business, isn't it, Brittany? To help others, to encourage others. I don't know what I would have done in life, man, without people supporting me. And in this business, I feel like a lot of times we're supporting others in their endeavors. And their endeavor is, where can mom or dad go that's going to receive exceptional good care, right? We want residents to go to exceptionally good places. And so, man, in thinking about that, Brittany, we got this new system out. I won't spend too much time doing this, but I am just enamored with my tablet here. This is all these communities. We're on this TSL. It's basically a Zillow for senior living. If you want to search for assisted living, and you got certain areas, like it could be price point, could be location, could be services, and then these communities will just pop up. And then the communities that we don't have forms for, they're just unverified. But anyway, I just love this thing. So anyway, TSL, if you want to know more about that, you can click the link down below and learn more about TSL and the new software we've got. If you want to know more about what we do professionally, what Brittany does, what I do, what students do in 35 different states in the senior home business community, drop down, click the link, watch a free webinar, do whatever you want to do. All the links are down below. But Brittany, let's get into it. We're going to talk about assisted living versus memory care. And man, it is, I find it fascinating. And that's probably a bad word, but I really love helping seniors. And for me personally, it doesn't really matter if it's assisted living or memory care. Do you have a preference, or is there, get your mind thinking a certain way? I go into it just if it's a resident, whatever they need, independent, assisted living, memory care, we just help. Do you have any preference?
No, I agree. I help everyone, and sometimes I think we'll cover this today too. We don't really know which direction they'll go, but I don't have a preference. I'd probably say I have a little bit of a soft spot for memory care because the moves are a little bit more complex. The residents need a little bit more love. They might be a little more spicy. I like to say spicy, things like that. So I think I have a heart for memory care. I know they're very emotional moves. So not a preference, just there's different approaches for different types of clients and their moves. So I think more patience, more empathy, everything goes into memory care placement.
Yeah, I believe you're right, Brittany. I find with the families that I help with memory care, it tends to be a lot more emotional. And maybe because of the environment, and we'll get into a little bit of that, the structural environment that memory care needs to have versus assisted living. And assisted living is more open floor plan, open engagement, and I know all communities are different, but you walk into a really good assisted living community, a lot of things are happening and there's a lot of freedom. And you walk into a memory care, it depends on what kind of memory care you walk into. I've been in some sad, and I'm sure you have too, been in some sad situations where it's just the environment is nowhere near where you would like it to be. Not blaming the staff or anything. It's just the way it was. And I see the countenance on the people's faces, the families, when they walk in going, is my mom really coming here? Right. And so it's a challenge. So we got a lot of great memory care communities out there, but let's get into what is assisted living first. And then we'll get into what is memory care and some of the differences, and why you should choose assisted living and why you should choose memory care. We'll get into some price points. What are the prices of these communities a little bit later in the video? But Brittany, what is assisted living? I know we see 4 things up here: independent lifestyle, etc. But just in your own language and what you see, what is assisted living?
Yeah, so assisted living is a community where seniors they can still have their independence, so they might still be driving even, or they can cook their meals, or there's certain things they can do on their own for the most part when they go to assisted living, but they need help with certain things. So they're going to promote independence in these communities, but also help them with, we call them ADLs in the industry. So things we do every day, grooming, bathing, dressing, all that stuff. That's what caregivers are in assisted living for. I describe it also as like an apartment complex, like basically independent living with caregivers in it. I get a lot of families in the larger community say, is this assisted living? Like, where's all the staff? Where are all the caregivers? Because it's not a clinical environment. It really is a home-like environment with caregivers that are there for residents' certain needs. So they're not there walking the halls, usually with a med cart, 7 hours a day. They're not doing rounds like a clinical environment, but it really is like an apartment complex, depending on the community, apartment complex with all individual apartments where they have the care that they need when they need it.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the caregiver thing. You might not see a whole lot on the floor, out in the lobby and the cafeteria, Well, they're probably in the apartment giving someone a shower or med management or something that's going on. They're actually with a resident at that time. So there's a lot of times you don't even see the caregivers walking around, and obviously sometimes you do. But I just think it's the assisted living communities. I think they're good ones, and there's a lot of good ones in my area. Man, it just seems like they try their best to make it full of life, and I really appreciate that. And when I do go on a tour, which I don't do too many physical tours nowadays, Brittany, I've kind of adjusted over the time. You can do this business in a traditional way, you can do it online, and you can do it the TSL way. You can do all kinds of different ways to do this business. But when I was going and giving tours, or even just yesterday, I was walking in some communities about TSL, and it made me smile to see some of the residents that were just like at the front desk, at the cafeteria, they're around the fireplace, talking, having their cup of coffee. And it's just the assisted living thing. I think it's amazing, the camaraderie, the friendships that are just developed over time. But yeah, so that's what is assisted living. And man, what is memory care? And I mean, I know you and I know, and all our students probably know at this point, but there's plenty of people out there feeling like, man, what is the difference? And I know that to be true because I've got some standalone memory cares in my area, and I get leads from some of them, not all of them, but some of them. And the reason I do is because there's a fair number of people that walk in those communities, and they just think that memory care community, the standalone memory care, is a senior living, assisted living community. And when they go in there and figure out that mom or dad does not qualify, then sometimes I'll get the lead from that. But just in your own words, Brittany, how can we best describe a memory care community?
Yeah, a lot of times memory care, this can get confusing. So I wanted to point this out a little bit. I get a lot of confusion with this with families, with our students. So memory care, I know every state's different, but can sometimes be licensed in assisted living. So you might have an assisted living and a memory care together. You might have a standalone memory care, but in some states, it's still licensed as an assisted living memory care. So just want to clarify that because I get a lot of confusion. Sometimes, not to go down a rabbit hole, but even sometimes in long-term care in a nursing home, better way to put it, they have a memory care inside of a nursing home. So that can be a little confusing, but we're talking about more like the assisted living memory care is what we're talking about here. It's still a home-like environment. I think a lot of people are misguided or maybe don't understand that the situation is a lot of them. They are very much home-like. They might have studio apartments, maybe have some shared accommodations in certain places, but a lot of times they try to keep the home like the fixtures, the carpet, they really try to make it still feel not clinical if they can in most memory cares. But basically it is a community where there's a lot of supervision.
Yeah.
These are for people that have diagnosed dementia or Alzheimer's. Usually it's not always your later stages, but people that are elopement risk, and no, that does not mean getting married, Matt thought it did. So for seniors that have a history or might be a risk of leaving with dementia and Alzheimer's, a lot of times we want to go home. They don't understand that where home is. Maybe they might not understand. They just see a door and they're ready to go, whether go home, go to work. I've heard all the things, go for a walk, so, and that's unsafe if their cognitive decline is pretty significant. They don't need to be wandering out in the courtyard, at 3 a.m. or doing those type of things. So essentially it is a secured environment. Almost always they're secured by either a keypad or key fob or something that the staff uses. I don't know in your opinion, but that is kind of the most, when we see those doors, if it's attached to an assisted living, when I get to that point, when we get to where we're typing in the code, I see my client's face change. That seems to be the daunting, which is
absolutely,
it's hard, but it's there for the residents' safety. The big thing is, again, they don't want their residents out, whether it be on the street or if they're near a major road or even like in a courtyard where they can't accommodate or where they don't know where they're at. So it really is like assisted living with more supervision. A lot of them, they're way more structured. So they're not so free for all. They might still have the same activities that assisted living has, but the caregivers will pull them out of their room and encourage them to come, or, really just maybe all day. I love the memory cares that say we're not in our rooms only but to sleep. That's usually a good memory care.
Yeah.
They can uphold that. So it's more of like a little, I almost picture it like a little home inside of a home. And it's just for, they have their little living room that they hang out in, and they really try to keep them active, structured, busy. And it's all leaned towards dementia and Alzheimer's care, where assisted living is more leaned towards ADL care, so activities of daily living care, bathing. So does memory care, but they're really specific on the memory care side.
Yeah. Have you noticed like in memory care in this picture, this is not a memory care, I don't think, picture at all, because there would be, I don't see any memory care has got things like this on the walls and things like that. This is more like a hospital picture. But one thing that kind of struck out me about this picture is that the colors, right? I see in memory care a lot of different colors. I see memory care community, especially the standalones, they'll have maybe like 4 different areas. And it's just a feature that helps the senior best define where they are. And so this one particular standalone memory care, they have these 4 areas painted different scenes, and so you're going in that direction. So I like that, actually. I think that's pretty cool. I remember, Brittany, I don't know if I ever told you this, but the community I used to work for, first week on the job, actually the third day on the job, I found out the night before that one of the memory care residents went out to the patio of the memory care, scaled the 8-foot wall, and went down to the convenience store. And it was, oh my gosh. Fortunately, the executive director was nearby. She obviously got a call. She was very good. And she just came to the community and she went down there and she was able to redirect him back into her vehicle, get him back to a safe place. Nothing happened to him, which is great. But those kind of things can happen. And, in assisted living, they've got the opportunity. Obviously most communities will have them check themselves out or have family check them out, but they can just kind of come and go as they want and walk all around. Memory care is not so much that, right? But I don't know how this guy scaled the 8-foot wall, to be honest with you, but he did. And but yeah, and so in the memory care, I just think the layout of the community in itself is a little bit different. I've seen, Brittany, in my area, a lot of the memory care, as well as be AL memory care, they'll have a lot of shared rooms together. And what do you think the reason is for that? Do you see that in your area? And what do you think the reason is for that?
Yeah, I think I had a community explain why they do that. We have a community that's a standalone, actually, and they're about a 62, which is a large, in my opinion, large memory care. They only have 9 privates out of 62 residents. So that's very big difference, right? They also are a community that works with the kind of dementia, Alzheimer's, like vascular or frontal lobe, that they do get a little bit combative. So when I asked her, I said, this is your specialty, your very specialty Alzheimer's dementia unit. Why do you have so many semi-privates or shared when a lot of your residents do need a lot of assistance when it comes to just redirection and making sure that they are comfortable? And she said that they really do well partnered up. So she said their philosophy is just, when they have anxiety, a lot of times dementia and Alzheimer's causes anxiety, whether they can express that or not, having somebody in the room with them. I mean, I have placed some very high level residents that needed a lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of redirection. And they did amazing with a roommate. And you would think there's no way when you met them that this would be the case. So I think a lot of it's for companionship. And I actually tell families when I'm working with them that the reason I do like semi-private rooms or shared or however they have it set up, or if even it's like a dorm, your loved one usually gets more checks than they would if they were by themselves because there's 2 people. So 2 different medications, sometimes schedules. So I really do like them. Again, hopefully the memory care is one that takes your loved ones out a lot of times, or takes the clients out in the community. And I hear another thing too, they're semi-private because they're so worn out from all the activities during the day that they just sleep there. So it's unless they want to take a nap or something. But that community, and specifically, I mean, they nap everywhere. They have
absolutely.
Couches,
hey, I would too.
It's their home. So I do want to point out one thing too with memory care and why it's important if you're either going to do this business or if you're looking for your loved one. I think memory cares range significantly on the care that they provide and their structure and how many resources they have. Like I have some memory cares that are doing amazing technology. I have one, they put like a sensor above the bed and it can track if somebody falls. It can rewind and see how they fell. So some really cool stuff going into memory cares. So, as a placement agent, when you're working with clients, definitely knowing the differentiation between memory cares is huge because again, they're not all the same. We say that all the time, but I think in memory care, there's a big difference from a bad experience in a memory care and a good one. And I've seen both. So it's really important to research memory cares because they can't advocate for themselves. It's something where they can't voice a lot of times their opinions and their wants and their needs. So be really careful as a placement agent when you're shopping them, as well as families when you're looking for memory care. Again, I've seen good and bad experiences. There's a lot of good, but that bad really does a difference compared to the good.
I've noticed in my own area, and I think I know the reason, but there's some standalone memory cares that have very few citations, but they have a lot of complaints, and a lot of the complaints are unsubstantiated. And, I think the reason would be it's like something happened, whatever the situation is. Like, no one's perfect, you guys. When we talk about communities and citations, I'm not perfect. No one's going to be perfect. And so communities make mistakes too. But what I think is standalone memory care sometimes is an incident can happen, whether it was good or bad, and you're in a standalone memory care, and there's obviously the person's there with cognitive decline, and they don't recall what they had for breakfast, much less the next day what happened the previous day. And so when the state comes in or the report's done, it's usually not 24 hours. It's they're pretty quick, but it's not usually the next day. So now some time has elapsed, and it's kind of a trick, because it's when you, as a senior placement agent, you look at standalone memory cares, you've really got to understand and know the staff. And I mean the staff, like the administrator, the owner, if it's, whoever it may be, not just the caregivers, and really understand their heartbeat and really get to know them, because the report doesn't always say, I mean, I got a really good standalone memory care in my area. And I saw the other day, there was tons of complaints lately. I mean, just tons and tons and tons. And I know that's not the heartbeat of the community, but something has spiraled out as far as, one thing led to another, and another person said this, and it doesn't take long. And it's difficult, especially if the senior cannot recall what happened, and they can't, justify their actions, or they can't, say, hey, so-and-so did this. They might just dismiss it altogether, or it might just be some story that they just fabricated or just, thought about. You never know. I mean, it's a tough situation. I never have thought about going into the business of owning residential care homes and things like that. But I think that would be one of the biggest challenges amongst many, is like, if you have some residents that are memory care candidates, cognitive decline, for some form of dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever it may be, and you have that kind of situation going on, I don't know how you get around that, because I know that the people that are in this business, 99% of them have a heart as big as Texas. Brittany, I know that's where you live, as heart as big as Texas. They love people, and the last thing that they want to do is to harm another individual. I know there's a bad apple out there always in every industry. Something weird happens, and that story escalates. But I'm telling you from experience, most of these communities, I mean, just like the ones I was meeting yesterday, and some of I've seen and known for years, they're just hard as gold, man. They just love people, and they wouldn't do anything to harm anyone. So, but anyway, that's memory care. And but let's get into some of the key differences. I think we kind of touched a little bit on this though, but the level of care, I kind of think of it, Brittany, assisted living as being more of a basic support, right? Depending on the ADLs, I mean, sometimes I've seen people in assisted living that were very much independent, didn't require any ADLs. I mean, and I say this because from experience, I used to work for that large community. So we were AL memory care, right? But we had some people there that were independent. Like, I don't even know why they were there. They should have just been an independent community, and not paying the extra $1,000 per month to be at our assisted living community. But they're very much independent. But it's basic support, memory care, intensive supervision. You get into the environment. I love the open campus layout, kind of assisted living. Obviously, what we've already talked about a little bit, memory care is more secure, structured setting. And then you get into the staff training, and it's no cut against assisted living, but they're just not trained specifically, maybe as much as the memory care side. Is that a true statement, Brittany? I know we're going to have people on the assisted living side. I've known some people that have been caregivers for care home owners for 12 years. So maybe over time they have got specialized training. But I think for the most part, assisted living care is not necessarily at the level of training as memory care. Is that true or false?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually depends. Again, this is something you ask the communities to find out what they do. But definitely, like a lot of them might require them to do a certified dementia practitioner, or in their corporation, they have a certain training just for memory care. This is one thing to point out. This is no excuse, but memory care is hard work. These caregivers that are in memory care have to have a heart of gold.
Yes.
So when you are as a placement agent, or again, a family, if you can get to know who is running, like you said, the heart of the building, the administrator, and their staffing and who they're hiring. Like I know some administrators, if it's not a good fit, they give them a little bit of a chance and that's it. So I know memory care, again, no excuse for not quality care, but there's something to be said for people that work in memory care. That is a hard job, mentally, emotionally, even physically. It's a hard job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. So when to choose assisted living, then we'll get into when to choose memory care. But Brittany, kind of hit on some basics. I know we maybe dive into some other areas we can, because we kind of hit some of this stuff with ADLs and social engagement. But that's when to look for assisted living. And then obviously we're going to jump into the next one, when to choose memory care. But let's hit assisted living first. When should a person be looking at assisted living?
Yeah, when they're, for the most part, independent, again, depends on the community completely, but in a generally speaking, you want to make sure that it's someone that, maybe needs a few things. Like a good example would be bathing, 3 meals a day. They can't take care of a home anymore. They're not looking to hire 12 contractors to deal with their home anymore. Right. They're just wanting ease of life plus any assistance they need. Medications is huge too. Medication management. Maybe it's more of a cognitive thing. Maybe they're having a little bit of cognitive decline, 80s, 90s, late 70s. It's inevitable sometimes, even without a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis. Pills are hard. That's a lot. Some might be taking 20 different medications, so things like that. I have a really good tip. This is what I use a lot with families too. I ask them, would your loved one be able to press a pendant or a button if they needed help? That kind of is a really good telling point, whether assisted living or memory care.
That's good. That's very good, Brittany. I like that.
You have to be able to communicate their needs. Yeah. Because in assisted living, again, it's way more lax. It's more of, here's a care plan. We know we're taking care of this resident, this, and this. If they have a need throughout the day that's not in their care plan, they would have to press the button or get help to get some assistance. Or memory care, and we can talk about this. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but there's so much more oversight there that they would just get their needs taken care of. They would not have to express their needs necessarily. Yeah,
let me give some advice to you guys. If you have loved ones going into a community, you already have one there. As far as pendants is concerned, obviously they're battery operated. So and I know the community is supposed to check them, and they charge them. They do their best. I just saw the community I used to work for. It happened more often than not where the pendant did not work for some reason. Maybe they didn't get fully charged or whatever the reason. Just as a caring individual, let's say it's your mom or your dad that's there, and you visit already once a week or twice a week, whatever it is, just take it, maybe a monthly responsibility on your end and kind of put on your list. I would just go ahead and change out the battery. I'd do it myself. I'd bring a battery just like it, boom, put the thing in there, close it up. My dad or my mom's taken care of for the pendant, because that's the last thing you want, is obviously someone to fall, injure themselves, needing assistance, and they push the pendant and the thing just does not go off. And again, I saw that more often than not at the large community I used to work for. And it's no offense to them. It's just there was something in the system that was a little bit weird, that just this pendants didn't get charged right, or batteries didn't get replaced as often as they need to. So that's something as a loving son or daughter, you can just take that upon yourself. So, and then we just kind of talked about memory care a little bit. Let's get into a little bit of the price point, Brittany. I think this would be helpful too. And, it varies from place to place, state to state. I understand that. I just want to show this chart. I cannot remember where I got this chart. It was in 2024, so it was last year. So things have changed a little bit, but this kind of gives you an idea of basically what you can look to spend, right? With assisted living. That might be on the low side, obviously, if you're in a big city, but it kind of shows the discrepancy between the memory care and assisted living. It's like typically a 20, 30%, area. Like memory care is going to be 20, 30% more than assisted living. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So in my area, for instance, in California, Central California, I live in dairy land, farmer land, right? So I'm not, if you guys are just watching YouTube channel, I'm from California, not originally, but I live in California. And you might think, oh my gosh, everything's expensive. And it can be, but I'm not in San Francisco. I'm not in LA and San Diego. So our median price points are a little bit lower. And so I see more assisted living in my area where somebody could actually go into assisted living for more like $4,500. But even that might be right about where this is, I guess, about $4,500. And then memory care, you're looking at 55 and above is what you're looking at. So Brittany, in your area in Texas, what's kind of the going rate for those things?
Yeah, right on. 4,500 to 5,000 for starting in assisted living. Memory care, I'd say we're probably more about 6 to 8,000. Are you more, I have a question, are you more all-inclusive pricing in your memory care as opposed to levels of care? Do you have a lot that are just
there's a lot more all-inclusive. Now the price point becomes a bigger factor on the AL side for some reason. But they get into memory care. I don't know, and they probably still do some sort of price point behind the scenes, but they try to make it more all-inclusive because it's I guess because the price gets higher and higher. I don't know. It just escalates. And so I mean, we have seen, I know you have too, I've seen people go into memory care 10, $12,000, and that's a lot of money. I mean, can you imagine $12,000 a month? If I'm doing my math right, that's $144,000 for the year just in the care piece, and that could go up. So anyway, just keep that in mind with memory care and assisted living. Reason we're bringing this up, not just for a price point chart, but maybe your loved one could thrive in assisted living for the time being, right, Brittany? That's a possibility. Just because you have some form of dementia, I have seen those type residents go into assisted living as well. Now, obviously, we don't too big of a scope for our video today about memory care and all the different levels of dementia and everything else out there, but they can have a form of dementia and still be in assisted living. So that might be a way you can kind of save costs. And then last but not least is making your decision. I mean, Brittany, kind of wrap us up a little bit. I mean, these are 4 areas we can see on the screen a little bit, but what's important for people when they're making their decision, whether it be AL or memory care?
Yeah, like when we're as a placement agent, for sure, when you're helping these families make these decisions, when we do our intakes and our assessments, we're looking at daily function, again, kind of their whole scope of care at this point. We're looking at how can, if they are a little bit confused, how confused? Are they pleasantly confused? Or do they have days where, I have some families that come to me and say, my mom needs memory care. And then I talk to them, they're like, well, she tells the same story every once in a while. Well, that's not so trying to really get to the root of it.
Hey, I tell the same story every now and then.
So you do get those sides of the spectrum. I don't know if you do. I'll have people that are, more in denial about memory care, or they're ready to go to memory care and they're not there yet. So I get 2 sides, but basically you're looking at the whole scope of care. You're talking to their primary care doctors if you need to, especially if they're coming from home. If they're coming from like a rehab or more of a hospital setting, then you're going to work with those healthcare professionals to make sure that your recommendations or the family's wants and needs are being checked off. You're all on the same page. You're obviously going to tour communities. If the family's going through somebody like us, we have all those good resources for them, questions to ask. If they're going through a placement agent, you're going to know the things we talked about today. Who's the heart of the community? Who is the nurse? What does their staffing look like? What's their reputation? What level of care can they do? All those good things. And then at the end of the day, you are definitely looking at cost and payment options. You're looking in the future. You're not looking just for right now. Is it somewhere that you go in at one price and it could increase? But to your comment, I have people that are paying more in assisted living memory care than they would be in a nursing home. So it just depends. There's so many factors that go into that. There's some communities that, memory care starts at 6,000. And as the care increases, it could be well over 12. So those are all things to look at. If a family is working with you, or if you're working with a placement agent, these are the things that we help with. That's essentially what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, hopefully that was helpful for you guys out there today, talking about assisted living memory care. There's a lot more components. We just scratched the surface today, but it is a basic understanding to know the difference between the two. And it just is. If you don't know and you go into a community, like I mentioned earlier, like a standalone memory care, you just don't know, they're going to educate you and tell you, or at least tell you that your mom or dad doesn't qualify and you have to go somewhere else. But it's helpful to know. It's helpful to know the price points and the location and a little bit of the history of the community. If you can get your hands on some state reviews, some reviews, we kind of go back and forth with Google reviews and all that stuff. There's some good and there's some bad in that. But, hey, just do your due diligence, is what I would say, right? Do your due diligence. It's your loved one. If you are a senior placement agent and you're working with a family, just treat that family like it's your family. And so you would do your due diligence in the research and knowing more about this community, and not just having communities that you're just your go-to communities because you use them all the time. There might be a community out there that you don't even really know a whole lot about. If you just reach out and get to know them, you might really like them. I mean, I found out over the years, there was times where early on when I didn't have any communities on my list and I was working it, then I got to 10, got to 20 and a little bit more. And then I started having some go-to kind of communities because they were the rock stars. They had very few complaints and all that good stuff. And families moved in, just rant and raved about them. So, but as I had other people reach out to me, I thought, who's this? And I started to explore a little bit, went by and saw their community, went on a tour, and embrace what they were saying. Before you know it, it's like, man, I love this community. It's amazing. And why I say I love this community is kind of like, well, I would love it because I'm looking at it from the standpoint, would I have my mom or dad go there? That's what I mean when I say I love the community. And some of that's, preference. But when you look at state reviews, look at family intel, you look at reputation, look at all different things we're talking about, it just really is beneficial. So as a senior placement agent, make sure you do your homework, do your due diligence. Don't just refer someone somewhere to get paid. Don't just refer someone somewhere because it's just the easy thing to do because it's just down the street, or maybe it's a community the family mentioned. And so since they mentioned that community, that must be where they want to go. I've had that happen where they've mentioned a community and I shared some information with them and the family changed their mind, not because I was against the community, but because the community had 45 citations in 3.5 years and the family didn't like that. I didn't like that. I wouldn't, my mom and dad wouldn't like that. So things can change. But anyway, glad you guys were with us today talking about assisted living and memory care. If you'll know more about what we do, what Brittany does in DFW, what she does in Missouri, what I do in California, and what we got students around the country that are doing this business on a traditional sense. It's a very traditional, hands-on kind of approach. Or if you want to know more about how we do it online, I've done that for years. Or the new TSL software that's out there that enables a senior placement agent to gain access to skilled nursing facilities. It empowers the family to make a decision. They can have me help them, or they can have the system help them. So either way, we're good with that. So until next time, God bless.